Hello, everybody. Sue Lundquist here with the Gratitude Cafe. Good morning, Bennett.
Morning, Sue.
How are you today? It's a fun
Very well.
Tuesday.
It is, as always.
Always magical Tuesday. Well, welcome Pacific Northwest. Welcome International. I know it's via YouTube. So those of you that are joining us can see us goofing off during the show. And then, of course, during the commercial break. And that's always entertaining, fun, at least. Goofiness in the house. If you would like to join us on YouTube, please do that. All you got to do is go to YouTube and type in 1150 a.m. For those of you joining us in the Pacific Northwest, good morning. And a special note to you guys in the Pacific Northwest. Benny, well, you're not in the scene anymore, but check this out.
What?
Hang on, you'll get it. Hang on. Defrost dating.
Yeah, totally not in the scene.
Yeah, right?
Okay, please
Their
explain this
aim
one.
is to heat up the Seattle dating scene. Defrost dating.
Do you know why they're saying it that way specifically?
Come on.
Don't they call this the Seattle freeze up here? That's what.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay.
Oh, totally. Right?
Okay.
So I have a dear friend who is putting on a beautiful event, and she's also launching a new dating scene. And it really is defrost dating, especially after everything that's been going on over the last 3 years. And if you would like to go to her event, it's it's in Bellevue, but you do need to go to Eventbrite and you need to search defrost. It's in Bellevue. And she's got, well, let's see. I'm just going to read this because that's just the best thing I should do. So defrost dating, it's going to be Tuesday. And check this out. It's 2/22 of 22. And it's the new dating club in town. And it's called Defrost Dating. Again, their aim is to heat up Seattle singles scene in an exclusive singles club where each member is vetted. That is important. The launch party is on 2/22 and called Defrost Dating Game Show. How cool is that? It will be held at Maggiano's in Bellevue. We know that. Entertainment includes a comedian, a magician, a dance instructor, Brianna Rice, who is a contestant on the ABC The Bachelor TV show. Do you remember? I haven't been watching, but maybe I shouldn't say I haven't been watching The Bachelor, but I haven't been. I used to. I know my kids love it, and I'm watching all of the drama and the juicy stuff. So if you want to defrost, if you want to go and have a great time with local singles in your area with high quality vetted people, you got to go check out Eventbrite. So just go to Eventbrite and search defrost. It's in Bellevue at 2/22/22. All the information is going to be on Eventbrite. Go have fun. I may even see you there. Ooh, maybe we'll see. All right. So we are going to be jumping into today's show. I am super excited. David Richman is here, and he is an author, a public speaker, an endurance athlete whose mission is to form more meaningful human connections through storytelling. His first book, Winning in the Middle of the Pack, discusses how to get more out of ourselves than ever imagined. With Cycle of Lives, David shares stories of people overcoming trauma, and they delve deeply into their emotional journeys with cancer. Welcome.
Thank you, Sue. Very good morning to you and to you too, Benny.
Thank you very much.
I'm Benny. Okay, I do the formal introduction and all that, but I want to get to know you. My audience wants to get to know your flavor, your energy, your why, and congratulations on your new baby.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, this one's a good one. This is a baby more of love and purpose than self-serving, because 100% of the proceeds are going to the cancer-focused charities that were chosen by the book participants. So I do have the main motivation is to maybe better equip the reader to start hard conversations around trauma, either as they're going through it or others around them are going through it, so they can form more meaningful connections. The second goal, a minor goal, because books don't make a whole lot of money, but is to raise money for the charities that were chosen by the book participants. So yeah, this one's a fun one.
Let's have that conversation, connection in trauma,
Mhm.
because there is so much vulnerability. And if you are not in a safe space meaning relationship, whatever that looks like in your life, it is, and I'm speaking from personal experience, it's extremely hard to have those tough conversations and to feel that you are safe enough and vulnerable enough. You can be vulnerable enough to share those emotions and feelings and fears. Can we have that dialogue, that conversation? Because I think it's so important.
And it's really, really hard. And, I really learned the absolute truth, Sue, behind the thought that you never know what people are going through or what they have gone through, right? I mean, if you would have looked at where I was at when I kind of made a very stark and purposeful change in my life, right? If you didn't know me and you would have said, oh, well, here's this guy, and you would have assumed whatever. I was running a big business. I had 2 kids, I was married. I had all this wonderful stuff like from the outside going on, but from the inside, you would have been shocked to know what I was going through. You just don't know what people are going through or what they had gone through. For me, that transformation took, and that gave me ability to bring I'm hoping another level of understanding when I talk to people, is to, because I live that. You have no idea what's going on, right? For me, what was going on was, on the outside, everything looked good, but on the inside, I mean, I was married to a very physically abusive alcoholic. And, I was trying to fix the relationship and trying to make it work out. And it was the most miserable thing I'd ever been involved in. And, I was overweight. I was a smoker. I was stressed out. I was, very despondent. I was, kind of at the end of my rope. But on the outside, most people wouldn't have known. Right. And I think that's the same with everybody that's going through some type of trauma, is even if we might have some sense of it, we really don't know. We don't know what people have gone through and what they are going through. And so I wrote this book in part to kind of answer that question, so that when you do have a little more like authentic connection, a little grounded, like take some extra time to learn, what's behind the curtain, what's going on, or what had been going on in their lives earlier. That gives a basis for that deeper connection.
Mm-hmm. So much in there. I'm like listening to what you just said, and there was so much in that conversation. Talk to me about your why in creating. Well, I'm looking at your book as its own community, right? Because it's a community in its own little culture of walking through that conversation physically, emotionally, metaphorically, through trauma, and of course, donating the proceeds to cancer. That's pretty magical. And I especially, and this is probably going to stereotype, but I especially love this conversation with a masculine, a man, because there's not a lot of that, and to those of you that are going to email me and go, Sue, that's not fair. You know where I'm coming from. It's coming from love and compassion. And it's to open that dialogue and conversation to bring men more forward. And I know there's women that can be, less vulnerable as well. However, in the grand scheme of things, it has been in history that it's very difficult for men to open up, right? Because of stereotyping or the media or family, whatever that looks like. So I commend you for doing that. And where I was going with the book and the culture and that conversation is your why behind it, right? I know it's a labor of love and to be of service. However, there is a culture, there's that beautiful community that's bubbling behind the scenes, and what you've learned from that whole experience. I'm sure it was so cathartic.
Yeah, it was. And the thought, the beginning of this journey for me kind of came at this really low point in my life. So I just mentioned, right, I was in a bad relationship. I had 4-year-old twins. I needed to get them and me to safety, right? I'm overweight. I'm a smoker. I'm miserable. I probably never looked in the metaphorical mirror. Like I was super observant, but I was never really self-aware or focused on me. I was one of these guys, and I'm sure a lot of guys out there can relate to this. Like, instead of dealing with my own problems, I was creating other problems or trying to fix everything else as a way to not deal with my own stuff. And I had a friend of mine who said to me, you know, I was complaining to him one day about, you know, my horrible life that he knew about, right? The bad parts of it. And he finally just stopped me one day and he says, dude, for years I've been listening to you complaining, and you're not, you know, you're not getting it. You're the problem, right? She's not the problem. You're the problem. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not the problem. I'm not the one doing this. I'm not the one doing that. He goes, dude, he goes, you attack problems like the problem is a rabid dog, and you think you can change the dog from being rabid. So you go pet it, and then the dog bites you and you get mad that the dog bit you. So why don't you realize, why are you out there trying to pet a bunch of rabid dogs? And I'm like, whoa, yeah, that makes sense. So I kind of like, it just hit me, not at one moment, but in a short period of time, that, yeah, you know what? I was the problem. I had to deal with what was making me make bad decisions. Why was I okay putting myself in unwinnable situations? What was that? And so I took this first step along this journey of going, okay, well, let's just figure out, David, who you want to be. Like, who are you and who do you want to be? And that was a real important point in my life, because I was in my late 30s. I'd never, ever taken that approach. I mean, accomplished stuff, did a lot of selfish things or whatever, but not aware of, this is a purposeful thing I'm trying to do for me. At that same time, Sue, the same short period of time, I got a call from my sister, who was long along her path of who she wanted to be. Great marriage, you know, wonderful relationship with her young kids, great career, great circle of friends. She was just living her life way, way, way down the path of me. And her and I were very close in age, like 16 months away. And I got this call from her saying, geez, David, I got terminal brain cancer. I don't know what to do about it. So here I was, taking the first couple of steps along a path of discovery. And here she was, now just taking the first few steps along a very short path to her death. And so that was kind of the start of the you know, thought of, you know, how do people deal or don't deal with their emotional side of the real traumas that they've had or what they might be going through, because it's super easy to pull back when that happens. They want to isolate, or how could I tell her how positive my life looked in long term ahead of me because I finally started doing the right thing? How am I going to tell her that, knowing that she's going to die in a couple of years or sooner?
Right.
How is she going to
shame and that guilt and that conversation that you're having in here?
Absolutely. Right. So there's so many pushes and pulls that prevent us from maybe just connecting on an emotional level. And we both, fortunately, we purposefully did that with each other. We purposely talked about the emotional side of things, like, how are you feeling? Or, oh my God, June, I said something stupid. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. It's not stupid. You can ask. And what, I mean, we were able to talk in a really authentic way, which is not terribly unusual, but it definitely is not the norm. And
yeah, and Dave, I want to have that conversation right there where you're saying, because why does it have to take getting to a trauma to go deep and have those authentic conversations? I would love to, and that's another why for me too, and be able to provide a service like the radio show to give people the tools, and also to hear the stories like yourself, to say, hey, you don't have to wait till there's trauma in the house, metaphorically speaking, whatever that looks like, right?
yeah, it's a really complicated question. And my experience has been only because even if I haven't grown to the level I should be at from where I started, I've grown a lot, right, in the last couple of decades. And you know, I think that the answer to that question lies in really, really three things. One, knowing yourself. So where are you relative to where you want to be or where you could be? So really know yourself, right? Number two is forgive yourself. Like, for guys, I'm not going to say every guy, but for guys, You don't have to be right. Just right for everybody that has experience. You don't have to already know. Like just because you're used to the way something was done 100 times doesn't mean that that's the right way or the only way.
Oh my
Right?
God, thank you.
But part of that is also forgiveness, because you
Yes.
got to forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now,
So,
because you
yeah.
didn't know it before. So
Yep.
it's really being aware and being and knowing yourself. It's two, forgiving yourself, or realizing that you it's okay to not know everything. And third is you got to lean into where you're trying to go to. And a lot of people they're not comfortable with any of those three. And I think authenticity lies in that. If you're going to have a true, hopefully connective conversation with someone about, and really listen to them, really hear them, really understand what your part is in that, um, all of that wrapped in this wonderful freeing thought that we're just passerbyers in everybody's life. I can't live your life, you can't live mine. And there's a freedom in that to say, look, if I'm just a passerby and you're taking a moment to want to connect with me in an authentic way, I'm gonna return it back. Or if I want to connect with you in an authentic way, I'm gonna give you a safe space to do that. It's really hard because those elements are not easy.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And isn't that the life's journey, right? Getting to know yourself, forgiving yourself for what you didn't know, right? Internal, external, all of that. And then also forgiving those. And I want to just circle back to what the beginning of the conversation about taking ownership, responsibility, and accountability for how you were showing up in the world, in the relationship, right? And the audience knows this, and with the curriculum that I teach, everything starts with awareness. You can put your head in the sand for years, guilty, because of denial, fear, whatever that looks like, or fight and flight because you are doing the best that you can in that moment. So the moment that then you have that awareness, right, exactly like you were talking about, and taking ownership, responsibility, and accountability for that, and then seeking out the educator so you can get clear on who you are, how you're showing up.
Yeah, I have a friend who is a wonderful man, great teacher, and he says we're all just little kids in big kid bodies trying to impress all the other little kids in big kid bodies with our big kid words. And I'm like,
Oh,
wow, man, that's really cool. And he has this wonderful way of telling people when he's trying to help them of, would you talk to a little kid the way that you talk to yourself inside? Right. Because how many times did I say to myself, oh my God, you're such an idiot. Like, seriously,
oh,
why do you
yeah.
continue to put yourself into this problem? I mean, honestly, God, can't you learn? And I would just beat myself up mentally. And then when he said that, he said to me, dude, if you saw like a little kid reaching at the buffet, like for something they shouldn't reach for, would you walk up to him and go, you're such a stupid little kid? Like, how, like, don't you know any better? Like what kind of decision making ability do you have? Like, no, I would not talk to a kid like that. Well, why do you talk to yourself like that? And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I need to forgive myself because I didn't know then. Now I do know better. So I'm going to try to do better. And I also learned that through sport, right? Because I
Oh,
was not active at all. I mean, not at all. And when you start to become active and you start doing, endurance events, you learn a lot of lessons.
you do. And it's overcoming oneself, right?
Yeah, I
Overcoming
mean,
oneself, breaking old habits, habituations, programs, right?
yeah. But if I could tell you a quick story, let me
Oh
tell you a quick
no,
story.
bring it. Bring all the
So,
stories,
so
love.
these three elements of kind of being aware and knowing yourself, right? Forgiving yourself and then leaning forward. So, if anybody is from the South, if you've ever taken a drive from Athens to Atlanta, it's very, very hilly. It's about 85 miles. I did a race very early in my endurance career, an 85-mile rollerblade race from Athens to Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, Penny, you're rolling your eyes like who? First of all, I don't belong on rollerblades. Second of all,
I'm you caught me. I love rollerblading. I'm like, wait, what? What? There's rollerblade races? Go ahead.
You know, go to Europe,
Yeah.
and they'll have like 20,000 people in a rollerblade marathon. It's like, what the heck? It's big time. So there was an 85-mile race, and I was the last guy that should have been on this course, right? I won't bore you with all that, the reasons why, but I'm about 35 miles into this thing, and it's in the high 80s. It's humid. I'm sweating. I'm torn of every muscle. I got no energy at all. And I sit there and I'm standing sideways to this crazy hill I got to go up, and I'm sweating like crazy on the asphalt, creating this like monstrous pool of sweat. And I just had this conversation inside of me. And at that point, because sometimes when you're at a stark point, it never leaves you. And I have this conversation with myself, and I go, okay, David, so look, you're done. You're toast. You know everything about yourself. So go ahead, pack it up, go home. Like, just do that, right? Just pack it up and go home, because you already know everything about yourself. You're never going to learn anything new. And I go, but if you just give yourself a chance to learn, just lean into it. Take one step. Just take one step, because that one step is further than you ever thought you could go. You're going to learn something new about yourself. And then take the next step. And if you can, the next and the next. And I went another 6 hours, having no business being out there anyway. But I made it to the finish line 9.5 hours after I started, and like 6 hours after I had depleted myself of every ounce of ability. And it was because I said, all right, you should have been doing this stuff earlier so you'd be in shape, but just forgive yourself. Just, you are where you're at. That's right. Just be aware of who you are, right? You're on this journey. You want to learn stuff, and then lean into it. So if you already know everything, just go home, just pack it up and go home. Right. But you don't know everything. So go find it. Go see what you're made of, and go see what the world can give you. And it's a silly little analogy for me, but every time I think of when something's super, super hard, or I really don't want to do it, or it's completely uncomfortable for me, if I'm really self-aware that it's a path, it's a step I need to take down that path, then I go, okay, you're going to learn something, and you might fail. It might be something you're not happy to learn, but you're going to learn something new.
Okay, right there, David. And thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. And I don't think it's a silly little story at all. I think it's so, so powerful. And the analogy and the example that you give, and then that it's overcoming oneself. I call it the drunk monkey, the bad roommate that's in there.
The bad roommate. Yeah.
The bad roommate, right?
Yeah.
And you just got to say, hey, put up. And I love the conversation and the example that you get. It's just little tiny baby steps. You don't have to jump over the big cavernous thingy that I'm trying to say, right? It literally, physically, mentally, it's baby steps, and just one after the other. And then look, you overcame so much in that experience.
I did on a number of ways, right? First of all, I definitely prove to myself that I don't know everything, which is a very good thing, because who likes to know it all? Like, who likes to know it all?
No, get so used to saying, I have no idea.
I know, but that's the right thing to say, because I mean, who knows everything? I don't know and I don't have much in common with people that have the answer to every question. I'm sorry, I just don't.
No,
I don't have the answer. Right?
And also look at this though, David, and I have this conversation so much with my clients or wherever I'm at, regardless of whichever way that you go on your path, call it right or wrong. It's still a learning lesson. You're still going to gain wisdom. Oh, that is the right thing for me to do. Oh, no, I won't do that again. It's still wisdom. So have the CCs, have compassionate curiosity.
That's a really great Nelson Mandela quote where he says, I either win or I learn. I never lose. And it's like, that's the truth. So I learned a lot of things, right, during those times of, like, who would think that a guy who was a smoker and that never did anything? I mean, I could do a 5K a month after I quit smoking. So why not do a 10K? Why not do an Ironman? Why not run 50 miles? Why not run 100 miles, right? Why not go on a 300-mile bike ride? Why not run for 25 hours straight? Right? All these crazy things, because I thought, hey, you know what? I've been setting my goals. What what I wanted to accomplish or could accomplish and feel good about myself, my goals were very low because I always thought like, oh, what the way other people think about me is what's important. Like I'm going to put on this like front, like I'm going to impress people or get their approval. And that's going to give me my self-worth. Instead, I started thinking, well, how do you value yourself? And what are you proud of? And what do you like about what you're doing? And so then I realized on that front, my goals were really, really low because I didn't measure myself on my own self-worth. Right. And so I'd set super, super, super stupid goals very low because I could hit them and it would be no big deal. Right. But when you
there's
start
a building in that, there's a confidence building and a trust within that,
it is. And it's where I wrote the first book, Winning in the Middle of the Pack. It was this idea that there's such a freedom in the fact that nobody's watching and nobody cares. It's the only thing that matters is what you think. And how cool is that? So if you want to think really highly of yourself, just set higher goals, right? Just and sometimes you're going to fail. That's okay, but you're going to learn along the way, right? But set higher goals. So that endurance athletics was a great thing for me. It was also a contemplative place for me, and that's where really helped me through the Cycle of Life books, where I talked to 15 people and I did this 5,000-mile bike ride and whatever. But it was the contemplative nature of endurance athletics where I've really gained the most insight into who I am and where I belong.
Contemplative and cathartic, right?
Oh, both. Yeah, absolutely.
All the above. Okay, we are going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with David. His latest book, and 100% of proceeds go to the cancer charity. Remind me the name of that again.
All of them.
All of them. It's an umbrella. Basically.
Yeah, there's 15 book participants, each picked their own cancer focused charity. So those are listed in the book on the website, whatever. All the proceeds go to those different organizations.
Wonderful. And guys, if you want to get that link and all the information, please just go to claritywithsue.com and we'll get all that good stuff. And then of course on all the social media. We're going to take a quick commercial break and then we're going to come back and we're going to recap everything that we're learning and digesting and processing. So we will be right back. Sue Lundquist with the Gratitude Cafe.
You can't roller skate in the buffalo herd. You can't roller skate in the buffalo herd. You can't roller skate in the buffalo herd. But you can be happy if you've a mind to. You can't take a shot.
That's ridiculous.
Love it. I saw him pull out his laptop and I'm like, oh, he's got something.
That's ridiculous.
He's got something. I love it. Thank you, Benny. Okay, we are still live on YouTube. So David, I love this. Go ahead. Did you want to say something to Benny?
No, it's just that I have so many stories from that ride. It's
tell them.
Oh my
please.
gosh.
Yes. The stories are what people remember, right? Mm-hmm. They really do. Oh, that guy, he overcame himself in that rollerblading. I didn't even know that there was rollerblading races. I'm a rollerblader. I've been doing it for years.
Go to do that. It's called the A2A, Athens to Atlanta. I don't know if it's still going on.
Go do that.
Yeah, why not? It's only 85 miles.
Only up and down hills.
Yeah, I literally almost died twice on that day. One time I was going down a hill. They said like it's called like head break hill or something like that. Like don't fall because you're going to break your head. And I have no jumping ability when I'm not on skates. Imagine jumping ability on skates. Well, all of a sudden,
and you're going down a hill.
Yeah, and a tree was there. A fallen tree. Now it could have been a branch, but I want to say it was a tree. And I either had to turn left and go into traffic and get run over by a car, or I had to smash into the thing and fall down face first, because I had to jump it. And I'm doing like 35 miles an hour on rollerblades. I don't know how to slow down because I don't know how to rollerblade. And I don't know how I did it, but I jumped over this little branch, or in my case, I think it was a big tree. and I landed like kind of like cartoon, like, and I just barely one skate, turn it around. And I lived. But honestly, I honestly think I could have really hurt myself. right?
That's a metaphor for life, right? You got to just keep walking across that bridge, jumping across it. Sometimes it's jumping, sometimes it's skipping, sometimes it's holy shiitake mushrooming,
Yep.
whatever, I mean, there's in that story there, it's a great metaphor for life too. There's so many stories, and life is
we
a
gotta come back.
metaphor. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
50. It's good for what ails you. This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA.
But you can be happy if you've a mind to. All you got to do is put your mind to it. Knuckle down, buckle down, do it. Where you can't roller skate.
Oh, Penny, I love that so
That's
much. You gotta
ridiculous.
send that to me. That is so juicy. It's going to be that one and getting jiggy with it. It makes me giddy and fun. I love it.
I think that one crushes getting jiggy with it for Ryan. There's so much more to it than
So much. Oh, I love it. Who is that? Because I'm sure the audience is like wondering, because I am.
it's an old Roger Miller song.
Roger Miller. Okay,
Yeah.
you got to send that to me. I love
Sure.
that.
I'm
Thank you,
I'm gonna give you a music story super quick. So I've run like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, right? It's not even tens of thousands of miles, biked, whatever. And only one time can I remember ever getting a runner's high. Okay, only one time. So I'm in Catalina, which is a island about 25 miles off the coast of California. I'm doing a 50-mile run, my first ever run more than a marathon, 50-mile run. And I got my playlist in, and I'm running down this hill about 5 or 6 miles in, and I look to my right, and it's early morning, beautiful view of the California coast, and I've got this music in my head, and I am tearing down the mountain. I'm just tearing down the mountain, and I'm saying to myself, dude, it's a shame that this run is not on the coast, because you literally could run to New York. Like, you wouldn't even have to stop. Like, I could run like 3,000 miles, forget 50, right? And I'm running along, and all of a sudden in my ear, the music I play, everything from opera to hip hop, it's you better chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I'm saying, you better chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. That song is talking to me. And I look down at my watch, and I'm running like 7-minute miles, which, by the way, you couldn't get me to do 1 mile in a 50-mile run. So I said, you better chickadee check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Chickadee check yourself.
So
I love that.
So I did.
I won't be playing that one just because it's a little rough around the
Right.
edges.
Okay.
It's Ice Cube, so we're not gonna.
Oh,
right.
okay.
But
yeah, everyone can listen to it on their own leisure.
Right. But every time I start going a little too happy, a little too ahead of myself, a little too over my skis, I go, dude, chickadee check yourself.
Chickadee check yourself. I love that. I
Uh,
love that. Chickadee check
I
yourself.
mean, the timing, how did that thing come in my ears right then? That was awesome.
Okay, so I live in that world, so I love that, because all of it, everything happens in timing, and you're supposed to get those messages. And along similar to the lines what you were talking about, you meant to get that message, and I'm going to give you just a brief little story about just that. I was driving into the radio studio a few years back, and I was contemplating and arguing inside my head, because I was going to have this conversation with this person, and it was rah, 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 and I started talking about it out loud, and I literally bit my tongue.
Oh, that was
And
a
I'm
sign
like,
for you to bite your tongue.
Ooh, bite your tongue,
Wow.
sister. Yeah, right.
Right. But
You have
that's awesome.
everywhere. And I ended up, because I was angry. It was about me. I was frustrated. It was,
Mhm.
all that stuff. And I didn't want to blah all over that other person, make it their fault or make it wrong. And so the powers that be, I call it Gus, God, universe, source, spirit. It could be purple chopsticks, whatever it is that inspires you to be the authentic and genuine you. Do it.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Let me remind everybody who we're talking to. We've got David Richman here, and we're talking about his latest book, Winning in the Middle of the Pack. And also we were going to talk about the cycle of lives, right?
Yeah. And that was another kind of timing thing. So we talked about this path that I was on, where I was just starting to figure out life. And then my sister was on this path where she was kind of at the end of her life, and the timing of really what cemented this idea of this book for me happened So she was getting near the end of her journey, right? She was very, very sick, and
Remind the audience for those of
she had brain cancer. She, beautiful kids, beautiful husband, great job, great life, whatever. And then terminal brain cancer came along, and she fought as she could, but you know, um, glioblastoma is it's oftentimes fatal. And um, so she said to me near the end of her life, she said, "Hey, look, there's this thing coming up. It's called this Relay for Life. It's a bunch of people get together and they walk around a track, and it's really like inspiring and motivational, whatever. And there's a big team for me, and I want to be out there and I want to cheer everybody on for the whole 24 hours." And I go, "Wow, that's a pretty lofty goal. Well, since you're going to be out there for the whole 24 hours, I'll run on the track for the whole 24 hours so we can watch each other." And so we made that pact, and that was maybe about 2 months before the event, 2 days before she passed away. So she didn't get to go to the Relay for Life, but I did. And I was on the track for the whole 24 hours, and I was obviously super contemplative at that time. And I really noticed, Sue, I noticed that dynamic, that people were really good about talking about the tasks of their cancer. How do I get more information? Where do I how do I get my kids watch while I head to chemo? How do I navigate time off of work? What are the sources that I can find that will help me eat a healthier diet? But those kind of things they were good about. But when it came to the heavier stuff, how are you feeling? The emotional things. How do you interact with your loved ones when it comes to this type of stuff? People were quiet.
Yeah.
Didn't talk. Didn't ask. It was just like this quiet, like a lonely, self-isolating or abandoned place. And I thought, man, there's got to be a reason for that. And I mean, not that I would know the answer to the reason. I wanted to find what the answer was. Why don't people talk? And why is it so hard to have these conversations about trauma and the loneliness and the guilt and the shame and the embarrassment and the unintentional offense and all of these things that we're worried about in our heads? What prevents us from doing that? And so what I try to do is I try to get a 360 view. Young people, old people, just the fear of cancer, or live their whole adult lives, 5 different cancers over a 35-year period. Caregiver, professional, loved one, oncologist, survivor, you name it. I want all these factors in these inspirational, moving stories that were told within the framework, because we can't really understand the cancer thing. It's hard to wrap our brains around that, but I can understand abuse, abandonment, drug addiction, making bad decisions, being given a bad hand in life. I can understand those things. So how did those traumas affect people's ability or inability, which was more often the case, to form these meaningful connections, to have these hard conversations? And so I embarked on this journey of finding these really diverse, interesting stories that could shed some light on that thought we talked about really early on, that you never know what people are going through or what they have gone through. And that was the genesis of the book.
Excuse me, I had to clear my throat. I love that. What were some of the stories that I'm sure all the stories stuck out, but is there something that you would like to share intuitively that's coming to you?
Yeah,
you're welcome to do that. Stories.
Yeah, I mean, I know we can't talk all day, although I kind of like to talk to both of you all day, but especially when Benny pulls out interesting music. But some of the stories that stick out are, like, for example, Patricia's story. So Patricia, so here's what I mean by you never know what people are going through or what they have gone through. And if I asked Patricia without knowing her story, what's the secret to life? Give me an answer, give me some wisdom. And she said, well, every day you just got to get out of your bed and make your bed and go about your day. Just figure out a way to do that. I would be like, oh my God, you're kidding me. Like, seriously, you can't come up with something better than that. Right. Oh. Right. Because I mean, that's kind of trite, and it's right, whatever. And it doesn't sync with me. But when you start to learn about her story, And you go, okay, well, her story is kind of like, well, she took care of her dad when he was dying of cancer. And oh, by the way, she was going through chemo at the same time. And that was her fifth bout with cancer. She had 5 different cancers over a 35-year period. Basically, her oncologist is like, there's nothing left to cut out. So I mean, you're on your own. So, and that's not even her story. Her story is she met somebody just a year or so before her first diagnosis who ended up being with her through her whole life, her love of her life, through all of that unimaginable difficulty and trauma of dealing with 5 different types of cancer through a 35-year period. That's not even her story. Her story was she didn't meet him until about 3 or 4 months after she escaped from a 4-year terribly abusive relationship, one where she was sent to the hospital multiple times, could not have friends or family. He would beat the crap out of her if he thought she was looking at someone. I mean, it was horrible. She had to change her identity, sneak away. It was unbelievable. And I said to her one day, I go, Patricia, I mean, with the abusive relationship, with how the guilt you must have felt putting your husband through cancer diagnosis after cancer diagnosis, the strength that it took to deal with this stuff year after year after year, to deal with misdiagnoses and the side effects and all the problems that you've had, then to take care of your dad and watch him die while he's worried about you dying. I go, what the hell? Like, how in the world do you deal with that stuff? And she goes, well, David, every day. She goes, I just get up, I put my feet on the ground, I make my bed. Now I go about my day. Sometimes my day is to fall right back in bed again. She goes, but every single day I get up and I put my feet on the ground, I make my bed and I go about my day. And I'm like, whoa. Now that, and wrapped around the understanding of what that means. Now, when she tells me the secret to life is just put your feet on the ground, go about your day, I'm like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. But it's more like, wow, how inspiring that something as trite as what I think that somebody said. So that, right. That connecting in a deep level. So there's tons and tons of stories like that.
And finding the gratitude in the little achievements, and I'm picking my words specifically because it's achievements, right? It could be mentally, it could be physically, it could be sitting up in bed. We've had conversations. It is going back to the baby steps and being thankful that I have air in my lungs, being thankful that I can stand on 2 feet. And if I'm not physically able to stand up, I have done something to motivate or move my BODY, whatever that looks like. And finding the gratitude and the grace in those moments, right? And building upon that. I think that is so resilient and beautiful and powerful. And I speak from somebody that lots of people don't know what I have gone through. And I could wrap it up similar to what you're speaking to. And I have been so reluctant, and I'm going completely transparent, because of my 3 daughters. And I've been reluctant not to share all of this stuff because of my 3 daughters, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And there has been some things that I have shared with them, but I've also waited until it was an appropriate age for them to hear what they were hearing, right?
Yes.
Yes. And
yes.
I know.
there's also this idea that, by protecting them, we might be harming them too.
Yes.
And I know it's a tough road to walk down. And, it's just like,
and then not putting their fears or doubts on them based on my experiences, right? The helicopter parent or that. And I've caught myself doing it because of my own traumas and fears.
Yep.
Fully. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what's important, if they do get to a point where you're comfortable, excuse me, with them knowing, or with you having them know what you've gone through, it does give them the ability to have a little bit more empathy, a little bit more compassion, to step back and because we can't protect them from bad things. Bad things happen to everybody who's listening to us. There's not a single person who hasn't been through trauma that, if we really understood it, our breath would be taken away. It just would. And that's one of the major points of this book, The Cycle of Lives, is that everybody is going through something or has gone through something, and we don't know. And when they're going through something as difficult as cancer, when they're going through a medical issue, a change in career, the end of a marriage, something traumatic, right? It's those earlier traumas that are affecting usually their inability to connect with you. And if we could just take a moment to back away from what we already know, we talked about that earlier. If we could take a moment to back away from what we already know.
I just put rollerblades in my head when you said that.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
And connect with them in an authentic way. It's, I let me tell you another quick story. So there's another quick story about Joshua. So we talked earlier about, this kind of like macho thing. Well, Joshua's very macho. Okay. Puerto Rican, he's like early 20s. He's a surfer. He's like this cool dude, and he gets his pain in his groin. He feels like he pulled something, and he won't go to the doctor. And all of a sudden he's like 6 months pregnant with and belly extended and a pain that he literally is seeing stars. So he finally goes to see a doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, we got pretty bad news. No way you're going to survive. It's a sarcoma the size of a grapefruit. We'll try to do surgery, chemo, and radiation, but he goes, it's not going to be good. And Joshua will not let anybody help him. He does not tell work. He does not tell his friends. He's very reluctant to tell his dad. He only does it at the very, very end. He doesn't tell anybody, right? He just goes about it. Because why? Because he's so macho. Well, I meet Joshua, and that's what I know about his story. But when I start talking to him, he opens up because he knows that I really am trying to bring the true story to light, so we can understand when somebody says, no, I don't need help, Sue. Totally appreciate it, but I don't need help. I'm fine. There's more. There could be more to it.
Oh, there always is. Always.
But even so far that we don't even know. So where does it come down to is he and I are talking, and he tells me about he's getting the pre-surgery where they come in and they go, so we're doing this, we're doing that, right? And you could die or this could happen, right? You're aware, and right, all these doctors and nurses and administrators are coming in, letting him know what they're getting ready to do. And his girlfriend is sitting there. She hadn't heard any of this from him. And she turns white. She gets up and she goes, this is not my life. I'm out. I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody that could die on the table. You're on your own, dude. So she leaves, like, to never be heard from again. Imagine being willed into potentially life-ending surgery, knowing that the one person that you opened up to just walked out on you. And that wasn't his, we're talking, and months later we're still talking, and I'm just like, Joshua, there's more to the story that I'm just not piecing the whole thing together. Talk to me. And it turns out that when he was 6 years old, Sue, he was dropped off. He ran into the house. He ran upstairs to go tell his mom something, and she was killing herself in the bathtub. And I couldn't even imagine wrapping my brain around being nearly 7 years old and walking in where your mom's taking the last few breaths of her life. And that type of abandonment and that type of, how could somebody leave me? I mean, that is one of the deepest, darkest, loneliest places to be. And then you go through life and you develop the strength to wake up every morning and freaking go about your life. And then at the one time, probably in your life, 20 years later, that you need somebody, you reach out and they go, you're on your own, dude. I mean, when this guy says, I don't need your help, what is he saying? He's not saying I'm fine. He's saying there's no way I'm going to ever allow anybody in again, because they're just going to abandon me. And he has a right to feel that way. And so how does he overcome that? How does he learn how to love again? How does he learn how to be vulnerable? How does he learn that he doesn't have to go alone? And there's a process for that. And there's a beautiful story that he tells about how he was able to learn that. But I oftentimes think when somebody says, no, I'm okay, I'll now say, are you telling me you're okay? Or are you telling me you're okay because you think that's what I want to hear? Or are you telling me you're okay because you really don't want to show me that you're not? Like, what's the reason? Because I know you're not okay. My heart's telling me you're not okay. How hard is it to say that to somebody? but I know now I got to say it because I know Joshua's story, right? There's more behind it. So I got to try to make it uncomfortable. I got to try to be in a place they don't want to be because I'm going to be there. I'm going to, right? Not all the time, not for everybody. Sometimes I'm going to screw up, but I really want to be there for the people that matter to me. Right. And so, so there's so many wonderful, beautiful stories. Not that part of his story was beautiful, but how he overcame that and how he's so unbelievably centered and happy and open and caring and just, is such a wonderful human being, and how he made the transformation from those low points to where he is today will give us insight into how to deal with Joshua's, in our life.
Oh, I love that. You hit a chord big time. So I was meant to hear that story. So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm just taking a minute. There's Joshua's in all of our lives. What were the 3 questions? I want to remind the audience. When I say, oh, I'm just okay. What are the 3 questions you said?
I said, well, you could ask it anyway, but the way I do it is I go, are you telling me you're okay because you think that's what I want to hear? Are you telling me okay because you don't want to show me that you're weak, right? Are you telling me you're okay because if you do tell me you're not, are you afraid I'm going to go running for the hills? Right? Because listen, and I'm not judging because I'm going to answer this question, yes. But I know you and everybody that's listening here knows someone who's going through something terribly difficult. And we could have or should have, or we're asked to reach out to them and we haven't. And part of the reason we haven't, because we're embarrassed that we haven't. And we're like, oh, I don't know how to,
and the guilt and all the stuff.
I know people like that. I know people that I should be reaching out to. And so I'm just saying that if the opportunity arises to connect with people, just don't worry about saying the wrong thing. Don't worry about invading their space. If they say no, dude, get out of my face. I don't need you. I don't need you right now. I'm fine. Okay, fine. But at least I'm making an attempt to go, can we connect? Right? Can we connect in a way? I want you to know I'm here. I'm present. Right? I don't know the answer to the questions. I'm not trying to give you advice. I don't have any sympathy for you. I just want to connect. Right? That's hard. It's so hard to do.
That is such a beautiful dialogue, though. I mean, and that's what I do is I search out for those conversations and that dialogue, those questions to ask, because when you're in fight or flight, or when you just don't know what you don't know, right? And I love creating those questions and conversation around that. And you now providing those questions to not only myself, but thousands of other people that are listening. So thank you. Thank you so much for the journey. We've got about a minute to go. For all of you listening, Connection into Trauma, David's book, it's 100% goes to charity. So you can get all that information. The links to his book is all on claritywithsue.com and all the social media, everything. A big, deep, juicy conversation today about overcoming not only yourself, changing the dialogue within ourselves, the bad roommate, the drunk monkey, whatever that is, and really genuinely and authentically providing a connection, not only for yourself, but the other people that are important to you that are in your life. Right. And take the time to do it. Why not? Right. Why not? Thank you so much, David. And I am very grateful for this conversation, and lots of chords were hit for me today. So I was meant to hear it. So thank you very much. For those of you listening, again, you can go to claritywithsue.com and get more information about David, get his links, get the book, 100% goes to charity. We would love for that to be of service to do that for you. All right, next week, we're doing a Valentine's Day special. We're going to connect you with your loved ones. So make sure you guys do the call-in show with us next week. I love you guys, and I'll see you next week. And until then, each of you are a gift. Get out there and share yourself with the world.